My name is Takbir Fatima. I'm an architect based in Hyderabad. I've done my BArch from CSIIT in Secunderabad, and I did my master's from the Architectural Association Design Research Lab in London. I came back to Hyderabad because I wanted to do some work that was kind of socially relevant, and there are more opportunities to do this kind of work here. I started Design Aware with an aim to create awareness through livable, wearable, usable, and accessible design, because I believe good design should be accessible to all and not become a forte of a limited few. We were asked to design a charity school for children of disadvantaged backgrounds in the heart of the Golconda fort. So the building had to be very low budget, and that was pretty much the brief. The fort is in probably the oldest part of the city of Hyderabad. It's more than 800 years old, and also the context is such that the fort is located on a hilltop, and there are these millions of years old rock formations which are indigenous to the Deccan Plateau. And so the entire site is very highly contoured, and the terrain is very difficult. And there is this hundreds of years old settlement which is within the outer walls of the Golconda Fort area. These low-rise, high-density courtyard houses which all share walls. This is our site, which is, as you can see, it's highly contoured. There was an existing retaining wall which kind of formed this box of soil which was filled up to create a flat ground, and there was an existing mosque on the site and an existing large, kind of like a warehouse shed which had partitions in it for the classroom. So it was like a makeshift school that was being run there. So the site itself is divided into three parts. The higher part of the site, which is raised. The lower part of the site is this, where you have these existing courtyard houses. So you have kind of a row of these courtyard houses which are continuing this way, and they all pretty much share the same sort of proportions, and within them you have you have these built spaces which are and open spaces which are courtyards. One of the courtyard houses is part of our site. So that's like the lowest level. So if you call this 0 feet, then this would be at 20 feet. So if you have a main road here, you have this road that is running. So you have one access from here, and then this road sort of winds and it goes around and it goes behind, and you can access the school from there. And north is on this side. So the site is divided into three parts. One is this narrow access from the road, which is the courtyard house. And then you have this central part of the site, which is highly contoured, which kind of forms almost like a wall of rock that is dividing the two upper and lower parts of the site. So as you can see, it's very, very highly contoured, and all of this is not soil. It's all sheetrock, and it continues for kilometers all throughout the fort area. And this entire thing is almost like a cliff. So because we had this access to the street, which was the courtyard house, we wanted to continue this as a central corridor or a central circulation space, and also gathering space and a connection between all parts of the school. So the reason for creating this was also because our building needed to seamlessly connect all the levels to one another, and kind of merge into the terrain that was existing. So our idea was to create the central zone, which would be flanked by classrooms on either end. So you would have two classrooms on either end. But once we started excavating, we just hit the sheetrock. So it's very different from other design processes, in which you do the design first and then you go onto the site and you execute that. But in our process, we had to sort of intersperse the design process along with construction. So we had to design as we were constructing on site, responding to the conditions on the site. So we had to, once we started constructing this part, we built one classroom on each side, and then we hit the rock. So there was rock here, and so we couldn't go further. So we had to eliminate 2 more classrooms which are supposed to be coming here, and the rock sort of entered the classroom. This is how the rock kind of, forms one face of one of the walls of the classroom, and then it continues this way and goes into the other classroom. So this is how the rock sort of forms a wall that ends this classroom. On top of that, we were able to stack one more layer where at this point we didn't have the rock, so we were able to go further, and we were able to have two rooms on either side. And so this building is more experiential in that you experience it from the inside out. You don't see it from outside and then you go in. From the outside, all you see is this narrow area, and from the other side you see the open area. So because we had this retaining wall, we knew that there was soil under this. The rest of it was rock, but we knew that there was soil under this. So we started excavating that, and we were able to get 2 more classrooms in this area. So we were able to, on the first floor, we were able to get 2 more classrooms. So the building, we don't call it ground floor, first floor, and second floor, but we call it lower ground, middle ground, and upper ground. And another thing that we wanted to really preserve in this design with this building was that there were trees all over. So we had trees, in different parts of the site. So we had trees which were already existing, and the children were quite used to sort of learning under these trees. And we didn't want to touch these trees, and we didn't want to touch this open space, which was their playground. So the entire building is concentrated on the rocky area here. This is how the courtyard houses are sort of lined up along the street, and the street is very, very steep, and it winds around, and it sort of goes this way and goes up the hill. So on this side, there was an existing mosque, and there was another building here which was like a warehouse. So this road gives you one access from the top and one access from the bottom, and this is the courtyard house that we demolished. So these are the 3 parts of our site: the courtyard, the contoured area with the cliff, and the upper filled part with the existing school and the mosque. And this way is north. So when you stand up here, you can see the entire Golconda fort around you and the city below. This was a very narrow space, so we created this kind of square of 18 by 18. You would see this staircase that leads you till the first floor, which is the middle ground. So this is the staircase, and this space is actually a double height space that is formed here. Because you have shared walls on either side, you're sharing walls with the courtyard houses on either of the sides. We had to get ventilation in either from the street or from the top, and that's how we created this central cutout, which would bring in sunlight and fresh air from above. So we created this, as I mentioned before, the central corridor. So in either end we have these toilets, and our aim was to have classrooms on either side. But on this floor, which is the lower ground floor, we could only have classrooms on 2 classrooms. So we couldn't have 4 classrooms as we had decided, because suddenly we have rock coming into the site, into the school, into the classroom. So the rock forms part of the wall, one of the walls in this classroom, and also in this classroom. And then you have this, we wanted to retain a sort of green space. So we have this tree outside which is already existing, and we've planted another tree here, and we've created a central kind of atrium here, So you have this cutout here, and you have the staircase continuing to the top. So when you're standing here, you can see all the other floors above. And when you're entering, you would see this red staircase which goes all the way, connecting all the floors. We knew that there was soil under the retaining, inside the retaining wall. So we brought down this retaining wall, and we claimed the 2 classrooms that we have lost on the lower ground. We reclaimed those classrooms here. And we were able to get more classrooms on the middle ground. So here we have 2. And then we were able to get a nice space here, which we turned into the computer lab. In this area, what we did was we created the staff room. So the staff room is connected with the rest of the building. So you've got 2 parts of the building which are kind of disconnected from one another. So what better way to connect these 2 is better than a bridge. So we used a bridge to connect both of these parts. So you have the staircase coming from below, which is a bright red staircase that connects all parts of the building, and then it goes up as well, with these cutouts in between. So you have 2 kind of atriums that are bringing in fresh air and light from above, and you can see the tree and the rock from above when you stand in the corridor. It was pretty much a typical plan which kept growing and shrinking in response to the rock that's existing on the site. This space was being wasted only because it was highly contoured with these rocks coming into this space. Made this space stepped. So we created this stepped seating here, which would be an informal seating area. And there's rock underneath which is getting covered up by these steps. And this became the library. We also ran this social media campaign called Make Progress Possible to collect used books from people who were willing to donate them, used children's books, for the school library. And this library is something which they would just play around on the steps, and they would have fun while reading. So finally, we've reached the upper ground level. And as I mentioned before, we didn't want to disturb the existing playground that was there. So this was the old building of the school, the mosque, and then this is the open area. So this is one entrance, and this is our other entrance. And it's connected to the other part of the building with this bridge. And below this is the staircase below, so on this level it's just a cutout. And you have our spine of the building, which is the bright red staircase, arriving on this floor finally. And the cutout right next to it. So there's nothing else on this floor. This is intentionally we've kept the upper level completely open. So we've preserved the playground, and we've created kind of raised play courts in this area. You see the city below. You see the Qutub Shahi tombs on this side, Lanko Hills far in the distance, and the Golconda fort all around you. So we wanted to respect the proportion of the existing courtyard houses, and so we created a very narrow sort of entrance. The street character is very sort of jazzy and very bright in terms of color, which is very typical to Indian neighborhoods. We wanted this to be the school to negate that color palette and sort of not stand out, but kind of differentiate itself from the neighboring houses. So it's completely blank in its facade. But we also looked at the color palette, and we picked really bright colors from the surrounds. So we picked primary colors as well as orange, and we applied them in a very controlled manner throughout the school, in the gates, the doors, windows, railings, staircase. So everything else is kind of concrete, and these spaces or these elements are really brightly colored. So you have one entrance from below, from where the courtyard house used to be, and you have one entrance from above. And this is the road that sort of goes around and connects both the entrances. Staircase, the red staircase, which forms the central spine of the entire school, which is the central part of the school, and it continues and connects all the levels, which is in bright red and really bright yellow geometric sort of skylight. So on top you have no built space except for these two proposed classrooms and just this entrance which is covered by a skylight, so it's completely open, and on one side you have this perforated lightweight concrete block wall which brings in wind and air from the north, and this part becomes so the terrace of the school becomes the play court area as well as the stage for assembly, and the entire focus is on the playground on this level. So there's nothing else that's built but just the playground, the play courts, and the assembly area. The existing school that was there before has also been painted and converted into a kindergarten to mimic the rest of the color palette of the school. When you're entering from the bottom or you're entering from the top, there's two different ways of experiencing the school, and each time you'll have a surprise. So if you're entering from the bottom and you're traveling up, you go up and then you see this open space. So you enter from a narrow kind of built space. When you're entering from the top, as I said, there's nothing built. So you would just see a kind of roof, which is a skylight, and then you go down, and as you go down, the building kind of opens itself up to you. So you see more and more of built space below. So either way, there's a surprise. A building can be like a story which is unfolding as you go through it. So you're going through the building and you discover, serendipitously discover little things along the way, and that completes the entire learning as you travel through the building.